We know a small liquid container can fit into a larger liquid container. But how about putting water into a paper sack? Well, that is just one of many things you could try to put in a paper sack, but you could also put a sandwich in there. Now let's say that all we have is a flask of water and we put that inside our paper sack. Someone could say, drink what's in your bag, and they mean the water. So you can use casting to get liquid from one liquid container to another, but you can't use casting to get water from a non-liquid container. To do that, you need to use parsing. Here's the code version of that example. We can cast an int of 23 to a byte just fine. We can't cast a string of quote 23 to a byte. We would have to parse this value to get that to become a byte. Let's create a console application and call it data parsing. Let's start off by getting our user's name. Type console.write, and in the write we will ask, please enter your name. Now let's capture whatever they type in by saying string name equals console.readline. Let's pause at the very end of the program with a console.read key. Let's run it just to see if it's working so far. Enter your name. I'll say Rick. And then it doesn't say anything back yet, but when I hit a key, we get to the read key and the program finishes. The reason we haven't displayed it yet is we want to ask some more questions. Let's ask for their age. Console.write. Please enter your age. And let's capture that input into a string variable. String string age equals console.readline. Now we want this age to be a byte. So let's go byte age is equal to string age. Now this is going to error out, and we cannot typecast this. Watch what happens when we build this code. It says, cannot convert string type to byte, but we can parse this. The way to do that is we'll put this string age in a set of parentheses, and before it type byte.parse. Parse is a method of the byte type. Now, before we display the results to the screen, we do want to ask another question. We want to know if they're married. So we're going to say console.write, and we'll put in there, are you married, true or false? Now this time, we're going to capture this as a bool directly. Go bool married equals console.readline. What's the problem with this directly? You hover over the readline method and you'll notice it returns a string, not a bool. But if they type in true or false, then this makes a great bool. So what we will do is go bool.parse and capture the console readline in the parentheses of the parse method. So we directly parse the value returned from the readline to a bool. That's really no different than capturing it as a string and then parsing that string into a byte. We just did it here in one step. Finally, let's go ahead and display these results to the screen. Console.writeLine. Now that's just to drop a line. So our second console.writeLine will have our message. And in the set of quotes, we'll display the first variable, the second variable, and the third variable. And we'll get the name variable for the first variable placeholder, and we'll choose the byte age variable for the second variable placeholder, and the married variable. Let's run and test this code. Enter your name. Okay, I'll enter Rick. Enter your age. I'll enter 44. Are you married? I'll put false. And it displays out Rick, 44, false. No errors. Let's create another project, which is a console application, and we'll name it Sales. Now, in the namespace, above the program class, we're going to create a struct. And we'll call that order. Inside of the order struct will be a public string called customer name and a public string called product name and a public string called retail price and a public string called quantity. All right, it's time to start programming in our main, but let's look at our goal first. Our goal is to ask the user for input from the console for customer name, product name, retail price, and quantity. We will calculate the total order price and then display it back to the console. Well, if we're going to calculate the total order, then retail price shouldn't be a string, it should be a double. And the quantity? That shouldn't be a string either. We'll make that an integer. Now we want to capture customer name, product name, retail price, and quantity into this struct. Well, the struct is called order. Let's create an instance of order called cust_order. Now we want to ask the customer for their name. So we'll do a console write customer name. Now we'll say cust_order.customer name is equal to whatever the user typed in. Great. We didn't have to do any casting because customer name is a string and readline returns a string. That's also going to make product name very easy. Let's ask for the product name and capture the product name into whatever they typed in with the console readline. It'll get a little trickier to calculate the retail price because the retail price is the double and readlines don't return doubles naturally. But let's do the console write asking for it. And then let's type cust_order.retailPrice is equal to console.readline. And right away, it's going to detect there's a problem here. Readline returns a string, and retail price is a double. But we can parse it. Type double.parse, and put the readline in the parentheses of the parse method, and that should take care of that. Now, let's ask for the quantity. And we'll put the cust_order quantity into console.readline, which is going to return a string, but that's okay. We can do the int.parse and turn that into an integer. Finally, we need to calculate the total. Well, the total is going to be the retail price times the quantity. Let's make a double and call it order total, and that is going to be equal to the retail price times the quantity. Now we want this total to appear at the bottom with an extra line between it, so we'll put a console.writeLine, and the second console write line will be to display the results. Here, we're going to say total, colon, and a variable placeholder, and we'll put the order total that we just calculated. Let's pause the program at the end with a console.readLine. Let's run this and test it against our goal. Customer name, we'll say John Doe. Product name, headphones. Price, $49.99. How many does he want? 4. Total, $199.96. Let's create another console application to test the enumeration parsing. Let's call this one enum status. Inside the namespace, but next to the class program, type enum, and status is what we'll call it. And we'll put 3 statuses in there. Unknown equal to 0, active equals 1, inactive equals 2. In the main method, let's create an instance of the status enumeration. Status active status equals status dot active. Now, active is equal to 1, and we want to capture 1. So let's say int, and we'll call it int status, is equal to active status. But we need to return the integer value, not the word active. So we will typecast it as an int. Let's pause at the end with a console.read key. But let's display our results. Console.writeLine, variable placeholders, and we'll say active status and int status. That should feed the write line. Let's run and test the code. Active and 1. All right. Let's go in the other direction. Let's say active status is equal to 2. That is really inactive, isn't it? This isn't going to work because 2 doesn't fit into that unless we typecast it with the word status. Okay, now let's run our code. Now it says inactive and 2. Now the question is, how can we convert a string like active? For example, what if I didn't type 2, but I typed active? Active matches this active, but it's not the active in enumeration, and it's not the number 2. Well, let's put a comma between these two. This is the 2 parts we need. And we will say enum.parse type of status active. Now notice this is returning an object. Well, we know this object is a type of status, but we need to tell it by typecasting it and putting it right here, status. Now let's run and test this code. There, it says active 1. Let's just test it by putting in inactive between the quotes. There, we see inactive and 2. Time for Lab 4.2, Skill Check 1. Take a moment to pause this video and challenge yourself to do this skill check. Skill Check 2. Take a moment to pause this video and challenge yourself to do this skill check. Skill Check 3. Take a moment to pause this video and challenge yourself to do this skill check. And that was Lab 4.2 on data type parsing. Our next item, Lab 4.3, nullable types.